Everything is a conversation. Every voice has value, and every conversation is an opportunity to transform lives. Join us on the journey to find the gold.
Hello from South Bank, Brisbane. I'm Cindy-leigh.
And I'm Letitia, and you're with us on Hello from Moscow.
Wow, can you believe it's been 1 month since our last episode?
1 month has flown by. What have you been up to?
Oh mate, I've been doing so much. I've actually been recording. I'm working on my new album.
Oh yes, and I got to sing a BB's or duet.
No, you did a duet. She did a duet. Let's give
track?
credit where credit's due. You did a duet and she sounded beautiful, amazing. What else have you been up to?
My first time in a studio, in a recording studio. That was really, really cool.
It's so good, so good. And what else?
Well, we've been looking into our merch and our Hello from Moscow website, some of the things that we're going to be putting up. So watch this space because we've got some good stuff going up there.
It's going to be amazing, guys. But today, why don't we get into our next episode? Episode 2, what's this episode about?
It is about self-care beyond our manicured beards and bubble baths.
Come on. So it's not just for the girls, it's for the guys as well.
It's for everyone.
It's for everybody. And literally we're going to be talking about some topics that for me, it's been a real thing for me. I've gone through some mental health issues and stuff and it's, I think you're going to love it. It's going to be amazing. I know for myself, I got a lot out of it.
Yeah, and we've got a really amazing guest joining us. But I think one of the most important things we want to say right from the outset is that self-care is for everyone. It's an ongoing journey and we all need to start at some point.
Come on, so let's get into it. Well, today's guest is one of my good friends, Kiehne. So good to have you here, Michelle.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
You're excited. I'm excited. You know why I'm excited? Because I've known you for like over 20-something years now. It's been a long time. And to see you grow into an amazing woman that you've become, and you're now in the medical profession and doing your thing, and it's actually just watching you just step into that has been such a, I'm going to get teary, but
I know, I was like, what are you doing to me?
But it's like been so cool just to see you grow and mature and watch you just do what you do best and love on people. So welcome to our show.
Thank you.
So good.
Thank you.
Good. So why don't you just quickly tell our listeners a little bit about who you are and what you do, and then we'll jump straight in.
Yeah. So I am currently a senior clinical midwife. I practice in a model of care called Midwifery Group Practice, which is basically a community model of care where I look after a caseload of about 40 women a year with my backup midwives. We provide all antenatal and postnatal care. We're on call for their labour and their birth, any emergent care that might come up. We do predominantly work with our most vulnerable in the community. So our young mamas, our mamas with birth trauma, mental health issues, women who are just vulnerable in the medical system. That's my general role.
There's like a whole lot of stuff right there.
Yeah.
Awesome, and sounds very complex.
It's really, really complex, yeah.
Have you always known that you wanted to do midwifery?
Nope. It was not a role that I ever would have chosen for myself. It's definitely one that God pushed me to. And if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have gotten through the degree. But it's absolutely where I need to be. It's where he needed me to be. And I just never imagined loving a job the way that I love mid.
Yeah, well, we're so excited because we do acknowledge that you are working with vulnerable people, and vulnerable people often are ones that haven't or had the opportunity to or necessarily delve into self-care.
Yes, yeah.
And so we're really excited to have you on this segment called Defining Self-Care Beyond the Manicured Beards and Bubble Baths.
Come on.
Yeah, so talk to us coming out of, we're now, 2+ years out of COVID. We find ourselves in a world that's, we're trying, I guess, as a people, as a global community, to snap back into some kind of normalcy, but nothing is really normal, is it?
No.
We find so many tensions that we're grappling with, and one of the tensions I would say is how many people aren't well. And how many people require self-care. Talk to us a little bit about that.
I think the biggest thing coming out of COVID that I've noticed is we've just had this big period of isolation to start with, women isolated from our communities, from our loved ones. So coming back into community and figuring out where we fit in community is quite difficult for some of the people that I see in my practice and obviously around friends and family.
Yeah.
I think we are probably a little bit more kind of aware now of mental health issues and seeing the rise in mental health issues, particularly anxiety and depression in our communities. And while the numbers themselves are horrendous, particularly for our male, there is a word that I'm thinking of and I just cannot think of it now. Population. Or demographics, particularly for our males in our community. The current statistics on our mental health, mainly with anxiety and depression. So with men, you're looking at 1 in 8 men that are diagnosed, that we know of with depression. 1 in 5 have anxiety that is diagnosed that we know of. And we already know that men are less likely to report issues with their mental health because there's a stigma around mental health, more so with men, surprisingly, than with women. Women's mental health is also not amazing. We're sitting at 1 in 6 with depression, which includes our postnatal depression, and 1 in 3 who are suffering with anxiety. But when we look at our suicide in general, we're looking at, out of 9 people who commit suicide, we're looking at 7 out of the 9 that commit suicide being male every single day in Australia. So we are predominantly, our men are suffering. And that is where I think because they don't have the support or feel like they don't have the support and they're kind of trying to find their way in this new life post-COVID, we are seeing more men and more young men taking their lives than we ever have before.
And it's interesting because, like, I remember through COVID, one of the biggest things that I was called out to as a pastor in our area, in our community, was so many suicide attempts. And it just blew my mind, the amount of just, even males, like you say, it's a high rate. And I was speaking to my GP and she was just saying that how it's just increased, but they don't talk about it enough. And it's like you said, it's a taboo subject. You know, I can't like talk about it because I'm a male, but the reality is that it's high. And I was reading statistics the other day about between the age of 15 and 24 is the highest suicide rate in young kids today. And I thought, wow, it's just mind blowing that in our own backyard we're seeing such an increase, which says that, you know, we really need to start talking a lot more about mental health and the well-being of looking after yourself and how what does that look like. And I think in this whole episode that we're doing today is that we really we're not experts, but we can talk about what, you know, has happened to us, but listening to you talking about it from a medical perspective where indulging into it, like, I think it's going to be great. We want our listeners to really just feel the heart and passion and the need of, hey, we actually need to look after ourselves, whether we're male or female. Like, we actually need to put that time aside, I should say, you know, that it's not, you know, it's beyond the bubble baths and the masks and the manicured beards, which look amazing, and we love all that, but it just goes so much more deeper into that. So I
think just like even going back to one of those, it's a shocking statistic. 7 out of 9 suicides are men daily, and like just looking at that, it's actually shouting out the need of actually bringing the conversations back to a middle ground and saying, let's start talking about this.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and the fact that we're in 2023 and saying let's start a conversation, that in itself is almost backwards, right? Because it's like, hey, this is happening out there. Let's not deal with symptoms. Let's start putting measures in place that you know, address prevention, so to speak. So I guess we just want to talk today about like even some of the stereotypes around self-care, like you know, even it's often seen as a very selfish, self-indulgent thing, like, oh, go get a massage or just go to your favorite spa, or you know, and culture almost deals with self-care from an aesthetic perspective. Look good, but not necessarily feel good, or you're not necessarily doing good. So let's talk about some of those stereotypes and go beyond them, because it's more than that.
I think it really comes from how do you look at self-care? So I look at self-care from its self-preservation. It is, you know, we need healthy people for healthy communities. We need people who can manage their own mental health, their physical health, in order to lead our community, to be, you know, productive members of society. And so looking at it from it's not just indulgent, it is really, really important to our everyday life. The World Health Organization actually defines it as individuals or communities and the things that they do, activities that they undertake in order to improve their well-being and promote their wellness. So when you've got one of our biggest overseeing organizations saying, actually, no, this isn't just about what's aesthetically pleasing. We need to look at it from a different point of view. This is how we help Australia, the world in general. It's how we reduce our illness. It's how we reduce disease. It's how we take the load off our medical system. And it's how we improve our communities. And that's what we want. We want healthy communities.
Remember Dad used to say on our communique, we had a communique program, and he used to have that slogan that was like, happy people make a happy community. And that's the reality. If we're healthy, we're happy, right?
Absolutely.
And I think it's important that we get happy and that we, bring the joy and how that looks. And so in our, as we discuss now in our next section, we're going to talk about some dimensions of self-care and what does that look like. All right, so let's explore some of the dimensions of self-care and what that looks like. We're going to go through 4. There's probably lots.
Yeah, there's a myriad. Yes, and we're definitely not experts on this, but we just want to bring some of these to the fore and some of these to people's minds at least.
So our first one we're going to talk about is like physical self-care. What does that look like? It includes like, our physical health, our regular exercise, all those sort of things. So if we were to unpack that, how would you look at that?
I think it's just the way, we're all taught, you drink plenty of water, you have a nutritious diet, go for your walks, and it is exactly that, really, when you look at your physical self-care. And maybe we don't look at it as that's our self-care, it's just something that we may or may not do, but the difference that it makes in you when you drink 2 to 3 litres of water a day, just in itself, you've now hydrated your brain, you've hydrated your muscles, you're feeling much better, you can function better because you've drunk water. I know that if I'm not drinking water, I'm grumpy, I can't focus. And so I always know, like, you get a headache. Your body is literally warning you and saying you need to do something here. I'm dehydrated. Drink more water. It's the same with when we aren't eating a nutritionally balanced diet. Our body tells us when we need to get out and get exercise and be out in the sunshine. Like, our body needs the vitamin D that it absorbs from the sun. We can only do that by being in the sun or taking a supplement. But the best thing, like, God created this entire world, the best thing that we could do is be out in the environment and taking care of ourselves, which is very much just getting back to the basics.
Just bringing like exercise and that well balanced nutrition.
And I think I guess with the physical part of self-care, you have to be intentional. We live in such a high-pressured, high-functioning and demanding society that if that's not prioritized, and if it's like that approach of I'll do it when I get to it, well, you don't actually ever get to it. You end up like saying I'll do that when I have time. And before you know it, you're not sleeping enough. You're not eating well. You're not exercising. Or you also even just counting your busyness as exercise. You made all these minor justifications to say it'll be all right. But then it's not. We find that it's not all right.
Exactly.
No, that's it. Hey, and I think like one of the big ones is too is like getting in like the right amount of sleep. For me, like over the years being involved with like entertainment and singing and all that type of stuff, like you tend to find that you're getting home like way after midnight and then you get back up early again and you start your day, so you're minimizing the amount of sleep, and then it's like you're not getting enough sleep, and your body actually has a self-healing agent when we're sleeping. And so being intentional about, like this year I've had to be really intentional about actually going to bed at the right time. Do I fail at that? Yes. Absolutely. Regularly. Would you say I would fail at that? I think I'm often talking to you quite late at night anyways, but doing our most, we call it being productive. Our biggest idea is at late at night, but really we're just putting off sleep, right?
And I think like another thing about physical self-care from like a medical perspective, being intentional about that, is one of like the best things we can do for ourselves is schedule in medical checkups. Do it at the start of the year, book it, put it in your calendar and just go and do it.
Absolutely. Our CSTs or our pap smears they're abysmal. The amount of women who avoid it, and I understand it's not comfortable. They're really not comfortable. And then there's always an element of like embarrassment, and I can speak from experience that we are not looking. So please go and get your CSTs, because you can prevent cervical cancer. There's so many things that we can do to pick up on things early. I mean, cervical cancer is really difficult to diagnose in general, and usually by the time you know it, especially ovarian is worse, it's too late. The best thing we can do is get on top of it. Get your breast checked every, however many, check your breast every day.
Yeah.
You can do your own self-checks. You go get your blood test done every year. Go and just get a checkup just to make sure that everything is functioning well, so we're not leaving it too late. Prevention is obviously the best medicine.
Yeah, exactly.
And we do that by screening people.
Yeah, no, it's cool, hey. And then we look at other things like, so we have physical, like you're doing our health, and then we have emotional self-care. That's a massive one, right? It's so critical though to our everyday life, our emotions, and learning to deal with your emotions and the ups and downs of life. And even in one day, sometimes I feel like my day is like the Melbourne weather. I've gone through full seasons in one day, and I'm not even going through menopause yet. I'm like, whoa, what is this? But let's talk about that, emotional self-care.
And also, there's a lot around with assistance in managing, but I don't know that there's a lot of accessible resource on how to express emotion adequately. And so I think that one of the biggest things in terms of your self-care is learning how to express your emotions.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Being mindful of regulating your own emotions, and not all of us are taught that as children, how to regulate our own emotions, and then it kind of develops into anger issues and things like that as we grow up, or just feeling like we don't have a right to take up space in the world. And I guess it all does come down to that self-love, knowing that you are worthy, and having that self-awareness as well. For like, I might be struggling in this area. Maybe I'm a little bit more sad. Maybe I'm having issues with my anger. Maybe I'm feeling hopeless, and then like acknowledging those feelings. It is okay to feel them. You can acknowledge them. You don't have to buy into that though. Acknowledge it and then go and seek help if you need to. We do need to have that self-awareness.
Yeah, and I think building like building like healthy boundaries. Like how often do we say? I'm a big one for saying yes to everything.
Me too.
But I've learned, and again, it's like just because you know how to do it or you can do it doesn't actually mean you should do it, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And so for me, I've really had to learn that it's actually not selfish to say no.
No.
And that it's actually healthy to say no and set these boundaries where I've learned to say, things like, it's not that I don't have it's not that I can't do it, but right now I just don't have the capacity.
Yeah.
And so I can do it, but I just don't have the capacity right now. And and that's actually okay. It's actually okay to say no.
Absolutely. It's the people pleaser. It's the servant's heart. You always want to help people, but nobody really tells you that it's okay to draw the line somewhere.
Oh, no.
It's all just expected. And we give and we give and we give until we have nothing left. The cup is now empty, and if it's not refilled, we can't give anything. And that is where we fall into burnout.
Michelle, talk to us a little bit about, there's like tons and tons of research when it comes to managing, expressing your emotions, and bettering your emotional well-being, and the practice of gratitude. Being mindful about the things you're thankful for. Talk to us a little bit about that.
It's a bit like that, isn't it, sometimes?
Look, I think gratitude is a great way of being reminded of the things that you do have. We always say comparison is a thief of joy. And so being mindful of what you do have, not what you don't have. A daily gratitude journal does wonders for your mental health. I like to do grounding. So for me, grounding looks like, if I've come out of a birth, I have a huge oxytocin rush, sometimes some adrenaline too, depending. Having that grounding moment of I'm either by myself or around like-minded people, where I'm not overstimulated, the lights are low, the music is soft, and being able to breathe through and think through my day and be reflective of my day. That really helps me work through my emotions, especially if it hasn't been a great outcome. Having that time on my own to start with, and then to debrief with others. And I think that's really important. Just in everyday life, having a group of friends that you can talk about your emotions, who are understanding, who appreciate you for who you are, and knowing that you're a human being, and sometimes you are going to feel forgotten, left out, disappointed in an outcome and things like that, and just having that beautiful little support group around you does a world of wonder. And then turning to your, whatever your spiritual beliefs are, turning to that in that moment as well.
Exactly,
That's
it. So if we're looking after our physical, we are looking after our emotions. I guess our next one would be to look after our mental health, right? We spoke about that, moments ago, but it's still such a big thing. Like, what are we doing? What are the things we're doing that are stimulating our minds, and what are the new skills we're learning, and are we practicing? I like mindfulness, like just kind of bringing yourself still and thinking like gratitude, like going over these things. So let's talk about mental health a little bit more. I think it's an important one as well. So we've just talked about, physical, emotional, or emotions, I should say. We get emotional, but about our emotions. And we've already talked about mental health a little bit before, but it's one of those ones as well I think we could delve a little bit more into. So let's talk a little bit more about mental health.
I think the biggest thing when it comes to mental health is when we start looking at it on a biochemical level, when we start looking at the imbalances that happen because we're not taking, say for instance, we're not taking care of our physical body, or we're not managing our stress. Our bodies are made to withstand small amounts of stress, but we are not made to withstand prolonged periods of stress. And so when we are exposed to this stress, we don't know how to regulate ourselves, going back to that emotional regulation, and we don't know how to manage our own stress, create these beautiful boundaries that say, I can't actually cope with this at the moment. We then notice that we're going to have that increase in our cortisol, and our cortisol increased for a long period of time, or released over a long period of time. You are going to have physical manifestations of it. You're more likely to have risk of cancer. You're more likely to have a stroke. You're more likely to have heart disease. You're more likely to end up with depression, anxiety. So all of these things that come into play, if we're not taking care of every element of our self-care and every element of our own body, we then start to affect our physical and our mental health as well. I think it comes back to that self-awareness of, okay, I'm not coping here, and then seeking help. The stereotypes around mental health, they haven't improved. I wish they had over the years, but we still hear it. You have people who might say, oh, look, it's more acceptable to get help now than what it was maybe 20 years ago. I feel like maybe there's just more help that's available and not that
awareness of help available.
Exactly, but not necessarily.
And I don't know that reinforcement in cultural communities of seeking help has actually increased overall. Like, I still very much in the sector I'm involved in hear young adults and young people say, I don't want to sound crazy. I don't want to go get this checked out because I don't want them to put a label on me. And I think bringing it back to this, hey, we all have mental health to look after, and it's all our responsibility to steward that well. And so not only just the conversation of, hey, get your mental health checked and steward that well, but how do we reinforce within a community that it is okay to seek help, management, and growth. I think we also really, really focus on a poor mental health state. But there's actually ways to increase a good mental health state before it gets there to a poor mental health state. So I think, talk to us about some of that. What can you do to address some ways of growing your mental health?
I think the very first thing is being aware of your own mental health and seeking help when you need it. It literally takes 2 seconds to jump online, have a look at Beyond Blue, have a look at Black Dog, have a look at Panda. There's so many different online organizations to help you. Even if you have a read through, sometimes they do the self-assessments. Obviously they can't diagnose you, but jumping online and having a bit of an idea, not feeling ashamed. I think there's so much shame around mental health and reaching out and seeking help and having that friend that you can talk to who's not necessarily going to judge you and will help to get you in touch with the people that you need to get in touch with. Even if you don't feel like you can go yourself. And there are many women that I look after who have mental health issues who don't feel comfortable going and speaking to maybe their GP about a mental health plan on their own that I would then attend with them just as an extra support. Or we do so much work before we get to that point on what healthy mental health is and where we want them to get and what realistic goals are for them in order for them to then take that step where they feel comfortable
Yeah.
enough and they trust their GP. If you don't have a GP you trust, find one you trust. Find someone you trust.
Yeah, exactly.
And then if I need to go with them, I'll go with them. But there's so many different organizations that you can self-refer to. You can see a medical practitioner and get them to refer to. So I think reaching out and having that time. And if you really don't want to see people in person, there's always the online therapy, being mindful of it. But I think there's better therapy or something like that does the online counselling now. So there's not really a reason to not access it.
Yes.
There's plenty of resources to we just have to access it.
Yes.
And we have to find the people that fit us right and not be kind of afraid of being like, you're not the right fit for me, and going to somebody else. Don't stick with someone that you don't feel is actually helping your mental health just because, well, they're a psych. If they're not the right fit for you, and but I'm not the right fit for everybody as a midwife. We have to be realistic. Not everybody is going to like you and the way you practice and the path that you take.
And
So
I think like presently in our society, we don't just have mental health professionals where you have to fork out dollars if that's the thing that's inhibiting you from seeking help.
Absolutely.
Saying, I can't afford this. We actually have online platforms. We have online access or support forums. I know one of the great support forums that is pioneered here in Brisbane by Matt Bolton is Circuit Breaker, which is
brilliant.
ending the cycle of violence and anger management. And we're just seeing such great reports for that. But that is a free 10-week forum that you can attend weekly, and ongoing referral from that even. But start somewhere. Acknowledge it and start somewhere. I guess.
And I think that's the important part, is that you've got to start somewhere. Like you said, acknowledge that. Hey, I'm not okay. It's okay not to be okay. And we have like the OK program as well. Like, are you okay? All those things. And it's so important that we just go, you know what? I'm not okay. And these are the steps I need to take. And so, which brings me to our last point we wanted to talk about, is the whole social self-care, how much that plays in on our mental health as well. Like, social is this, it's gone from one extreme to the other. And I think that's why it's so important that we do build those meaningful relationships in our lives, where we build a strong village around ourselves so that we can actually go, you know what, I'm not okay today. And this is why. And then the person that you're speaking to that you entrust can actually go, well, this is what you can do, or do we need to actually go seek professional help for you? And so I really feel like we need to surround ourselves with a great village of friends and people that can speak into our worlds and so let's just talk a little briefly about that too as well, because I think it is important that we don't always look to the social side of things for our help, where we need to be building those strong networks around ourselves, where we can like you said before, we don't get to that point where it's become too late and we're gone a little bit, tipped over, and no one wants to. I personally went down through a nervous breakdown many years ago, and it's not a nice place to be in. And sometimes I know if I look back now, I ignored some of the signs that were so blatantly in front of me, but it's not a place to be in. But I'm grateful that I had amazing people in my life that were able to, I know we've got to pull ourselves out, but it's also good to have that strong network of there, where they're reaching and helping you as well. So, let's just talk a little bit about social.
Absolutely.
The whole thing of socialness.
Yeah. I think it's a true friend that you can be vulnerable with. That's the biggest thing. You have to feel safe to be vulnerable with your friendship group. I have two groups of friends that I kind of put into either my category A, which are my friends who build me up, who support me, who will hype me up, who I know I can go to and say, I am struggling, I'm overwhelmed, I'm not coping, I need you to just talk me down from the state that I'm in. And then I have my friends that I am that person for them, but I can't be vulnerable with them. And so it's being really mindful of how much time do I spend with the ones that take but don't give anything back? How much time do I spend with the ones who will build me up? And how do I not be that person that takes from that friendship group but doesn't give anything back? So being mindful of it comes and it goes, and I am here for you to build you up and hype you up and talk you through things as well, but setting those boundaries. And I might see some of my friends who maybe drain me. I love them, but they're maybe a little bit more draining, a little bit less than the ones that will build me up. and who leave me feeling full and leave my cup full rather than the ones who deplete me. So I think that's the biggest one, is having those boundaries of like, I may not actually be able to hang out with you because I have the awareness that I don't have it to give you today. And being mindful of that and just honest. I mean, you don't have to tell them that they're
wow. But it's true.
But it's the reality, and whether they mean to be like that or not, and maybe you are just called to be that person in that person's life. And maybe they have that circle of friends that they are there, that they're building up. We don't know what they've got from their friendship group. All you know is from your own perspective.
For sure.
And so being mindful of that, and then just having that beautiful, friendly family that you have around you, or the second family that you have around you, to build you up and lift you up.
I know, like, moving to Australia, I moved to Australia when I was 17 years old. And so coming in that adolescence age and coming from South Africa, very much a village mentality, community, everyone's at your house every weekend, and people often drop in unannounced. And moving to North Queensland and not knowing anybody, also not having, a lot of family around us. It was just really, really different. Like, you just kind of felt overwhelmed, a little isolated, no one to talk through things with, and no one to check yourself, you know, through. And I know that even just like talking to some of my mates that have had, my best friend and I have had babies the same time, our journeys and our experiences of even having babies are so different. Like, with Indians, here's the circle, the boundaries, and we call them boundaries because everyone's inside the circle. So there's no such thing as you're going to be in your newborn bubble. Everyone's in the newborn bubble with you. All the aunties have come, all the uncles have come to see the baby, and aunties come in for 6-7 weeks and is doing everything from your washing to your cooking to helping you. There's a whole village approach to this newborn stage. My best friend's experience was her and her husband just wanted that time alone, but then later on finding out that she did feel lonely. She did feel like she was out there on her own. And so having the mindfulness of we're not islands unto ourselves, no man is an island unto themselves. We're built or created, we're designed for community and for relationship.
Absolutely.
That's it.
Absolutely.
No, that's cool. Hey, it's so good to just like talk it out. And there's obviously many more dimensions that we could go through, but today we just wanted to talk about the physical side, the emotional side, the mental side, and also just that whole social side. I guess we understand that, it's not one size fits all.
Absolutely.
Everyone, what works for you and you and you and me is going to be different to the next person, but there are certainly some aspects that, we take from here and what works for you. But I think the biggest thing is that we've got to remember that we just got to get help if we need help. And in our show notes, we actually will put some of the places that people can get help from as well.
Oh, fabulous.
So that, people can click on it and and don't, listeners, don't be afraid to reach out to us as well, because we can definitely connect, each and every one of you to where you need to.
And I guess we want to just also change or shift the perspective on self-care from it's not a tick and flick thing that you do once a year. Self-care really is an ongoing process.
That's it.
That we need to commit to be happy people, making happy communities.
That's it. Which brings us to our next segment, which we're going to talk about, tailoring self-care to your needs. And again, it's not one size fits all. It's going to be, what does it look like for you and everybody out there. And so let's have a look at that, shall we? So Michelle, can you talk to us a little bit how we could actually tailor a self-care routine program for ourselves, like help our listeners and help us? Like, how do we,
So sometimes I think when we look at self-care, it does look like a bit of a mammoth task. And like the old saying is, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So you start off with one thing and work your way through. So self-reflection to start with, figure out what it is that's making you feel not amazing, or that's pulling from you, draining you, that you're left feeling burnt out, and then you can figure out how to kind of tailor that from there. So setting clear goals and boundaries, prioritizing yourself, your own well-being, exploring different activities. What makes you happy outside of work? Then you're listening to your body as well. Your body is so good at telling you when something is not right.
Isn't
you just aren't very good at listening.
We're good at ignoring it.
It's like we put the mute button on, right?
Absolutely.
Mute, body, mute.
Deal with that later.
Yeah.
So listening to our body and trying to figure out what it is that is causing whatever issue that you have
100%.
is also really important.
Awesome.
Adapting to changing needs. You are not going to need something tomorrow that you will need the day after.
Come on.
You're going to be changing to something different each and every
so
time. So being available to change and being flexible and understanding that you are a human being that's ever evolving. So let's evolve with it.
Yeah.
And then consistency. Consistency is key. Your small changes that you do over time are going to do so much more than if you make one big change and you can't stick to it.
Yes.
Yeah. And then, you're seeking your professional help as well, particularly if you are dealing with anxiety, stress, carer's fatigue, compassion fatigue, things like that, reaching out, and then building your beautiful support system around you.
Which is so important.
It's really, really important.
For myself, when I went through my nervous breakdown, that it was so important to have just key people. Like I didn't have a lot of people, but there was just key people that, that I could just go to, and I knew they wouldn't judge, but they also would actually bring me to a place of elevating out of that slump. And so I think it's really important that we build great villages.
And I think we include I think one of the things about self-care is we include not just family, friends, but also a holistic, so incorporating forums, incorporating listening to well-being podcasts, or going to a workshop if we need that, and incorporating even medical professionals into that's our village, that's our support system, and becoming familiar with what we have access to.
Yep, that's a big thing, isn't it? And I think we need to learn to if we talk about now overcoming the guilt, the guilt of prioritizing our self-care. It's unfortunate that we we feel guilty, right?
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but I feel guilty, and
I know I went through a stage for about 3 years in a new job where I felt like I really needed to prove that I was the person for the job, and they had employed well, and so I said yes to a ton of things that by the end of the day I would walk into a home with a 3 or 4 year old and feel completely exhausted, feel like I was scraping the barrel of what I could give at home to my family. And just then also people would say have you had a day off, or are you going to take some time to rest? And I just never could identify with feeling okay with that. I felt so guilty with saying, I'm going to have the afternoon off. I'd work, 2, 3, 4 days extra over time, but felt so guilty about taking an afternoon off.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I feel like that we tie in with work ethic. So when I first became a midwife, for the first 3 years, I did the exact same thing.
Yes.
I did doubles. I did 8 hours, 12 hours, 16 hours. I would leave family events to go to work because I loved my job. And I tied my identity into what I did, but also my ability to work that and to have the good work ethic, because in my mind it was good work ethic.
Yes.
And then 4 years down the track I was burnt out, and I was no good to anyone.
Yes.
And so being mindful that, sometimes we have to say no, because again, you're depleted, you're burnt out. You're no good to anyone if you are burnt out. You're no good to your family. If you're coming home exhausted and feeling like you can't say no to things outside of work. And as leaders, I know that's really difficult, because you would feel that pressure to consistently say yes and work harder and work harder, and have that guilt of, well, I'm letting this person down, or I'm lazy, or I'm not coping, or all these things all these negative connotations, when actually we're just setting boundaries for ourselves to keep ourselves happy for our family.
And we just simply can't pour out of an empty cup.
Absolutely.
And I think again, what are we doing to fill that cup up? And for me, I don't know about you ladies, but for me, I literally just listening to music, or going to the movies, or having a coffee. Anyone that's been with me for a few minutes will know that I'm a coffee lover. I'm a coffee snob, and don't hold that against me. But the reality is what is it that because again, it's what makes you go to that place of just
you know, happiness is going to be different to the next person. So what is it that refreshes you? Like, you know, what are some of the things that you do, Michelle, that refresh your soul, that fill your cup up, that, you know, what are some of the things that you do?
The ocean. So elements are my thing. I am drawn to whatever element it is, the ocean, the fire, being in the bush. Like, I don't care if it's nature, I'm there.
Yeah.
That is where I find my healing.
Yeah.
And I guess, you know, flowers are the other thing. Again, back to nature.
Yeah,
I love
yeah.
anything that is nature,
Yeah.
anything to do with animals. If I am really struggling, that is where you will find me.
Yes.
Yeah. What about you, Tish?
Music, so listening, writing, just singing my heart out in the shower.
Come on.
But I think like one of the things is that refreshes you is identifying what's depleting you.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes,
Oh my
because
gosh.
once you can actually call it out and acknowledge, hey, that's actually depleting me, you're motivated to do something about that. So I think, just being aware of that, being fair, self-care.
Self-care. That's true. Hey, we just got to really be, I guess, intentional about looking after ourselves, and that it's actually okay. It's okay to run yourself a bubble bath if that's your thing. Yeah. It's okay, you know, to go with a girlfriend to the movies if that's your thing. It's like okay to sit. Like my mum, she loves reading books. Yeah. So for her, like to read a book, and I think, oh gosh, no, what are you doing out of the book? But she's got this whole novel read in a day. But for her, it's just like, you know, and lately she's been getting back into cooking, and it's like she's happy, and I think, you know, these things that we do, you know, when we're happy, we're releasing our endorphins, and like, oh, wow, your brain's going off, like your whole body's like energized, and so I think we've got to do what makes us happy. Like, it's so important, right?
Get your dopamine hit.
Come on, it's the best hit, right?
Dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin. We love all of the hormones flowing, just not cortisol.
Yeah, awesome. I think, you know, as we're wrapping up, and, you know, let's talk about just a few things like, you know, self-care in our routines, our everyday. Like, what are some of the things we can actually do in our everyday life to bring that self-care and routine into our lives? Like, what's some of the practical tips that, you know, what are some of your practical tips?
Finding what makes you happy and what makes you function throughout the day easier. Yep. So again, for me, it's 2 to 3 liters of water a day. I cannot go out without my bed made. If my bed isn't made, I will think about it all day. So
you're like that with cleaning. She's like, if the house isn't clean, then I'm not okay.
But it's acknowledging that that is who you are, and making sure that is done.
Yeah, I think that's actually taken me 20 years to identify that I actually don't do well if the kitchen is not clean.
Oh yeah.
Now, I spent at least the first 19 years of that in my marriage being angry about a messy kitchen. And it's like only last year I actually voiced, and I said to Andrea, I said, hey, I actually can't go to sleep, and I don't sleep well knowing that the kitchen is not clean, you know. But yeah, the awareness thing is such a big thing.
Absolutely.
I think one of the things I've found throughout the day has helped me with just like just taking the moment to breathe.
Yes.
You know how your Apple Watch goes, it's time to breathe, it's time to stand? I actually love that. Like, it's actually like, oh yeah. And taking that moment to go, you know, I'm so thankful for my day. I'm thankful, like, in that gratitude.
Yeah.
And it's funny when you start to be grateful, just how the peace comes over you.
Yeah.
The sense of just the serenity. Like, it's just, it really does. I don't know about you guys, but when I stop and breathe, I think it's just like, I don't know, we naturally just breathe, like we just know to do that. But when we actually go
deep breathing,
there's just something about that, isn't there? Like, do you guys enjoy that? Do you find that? Or is it, am I just weird?
No.
A little bit.
Breath work is so important. Breath work is so important. You're oxygenating your muscles, you're reducing your cortisol, you are slowing your heart rate, you're lowering your blood pressure.
Come on, the medical side of it.
So there's so many benefits to being mindful with your breath. There's a reason that yoga and meditation are all based in breath work, because we know it's got these beautiful benefits, and we know that they're really good at managing stress when we take a breath. When I'm like managing a labor with a woman, I will always get down to her level, and we will talk through breathing. I love box breathing. If I don't know if you know much about, but like breathe in for 4, hold it for 4, breathe out for 4, hold it, breathe in for 4, hold it. So create a little box.
Come on.
And that is how I regulated myself through
Yeah, wow.
A period of time where I was quite anxious.
Yeah.
And coming back to that holding your breath, the Wim Hof method is phenomenal for anxiety. So I will absolutely talk women through breathing. It reduces your lactic acid as well. So you're going to reduce your pain in your body, which is great for labor.
Yeah.
But talking through that breath, so with anything, absolutely, taking that breath is so beneficial to your health in general.
Yeah. And I think I found through unplugging.
Yeah.
Like that.
I'm bad at that.
Unplug from socials, unplug from, just
devices,
the digital world, and give your mind a flipping break. Like, it's like, just like sometimes we just everything, like, I was saying today in the car, I was reading digital in itself is growing at 600% a year, which is massive. So which means your mind is everything we do. Like we're in digital cars, we're watching digital TV, we've got digital right now. We're using digital to do this podcast, and it's this constant imaging all the time, and our minds are going, and it's like But sometimes we just actually need to unplug from it and just again take a deep breath.
And I think so much is aimed in society and culture. So much is aimed at grabbing our attention.
Yeah.
Your device, your TikToks, your videos. Even if it's things that is telling your mind you're relaxing, but it's actually engaging your thought process. It's actually requiring function. Your time, your energy.
Yep.
And I just recently in July went for a good 9 weeks without watching TV.
Wow.
I don't know how. It just happened one time, and I went to the laundromat. I just couldn't watch TV even if I wanted to. But the productivity skyrocketed. But the best news I ever received out of the 9 weeks is from my iPhone when it said, your screen time has gone down 6 hours this week, or whatever the case was.
I hate those notifications.
And I thought, oh my word, what have I been doing with 6 hours, every other week? And so that was, unplugging is massive.
It is. Well, they talk about the blue screen effect.
Yeah.
Actually, there's a thing now called your phantom phone, your phantom pocket. They talk about how people now feel like, oh, my phone's gone off.
I get that.
Wow, so you're one of them. They say that literally people were checking now. They go, oh, my phone's gone off, but their phone is in front of them, not near them, but they feel
you feel it vibrating in your pocket.
Yes. Okay, so you experienced that.
Yeah.
Well, that's that. There you go. That's
I'm going to blame it on work.
Sure you will.
Bit of PTSD.
Michelle, it's been so good having you with us today.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you guys.
Wow, it's honestly, it's been so good, and we really just pray that our listeners have got something out of this. I know I have. I've just been challenged on, even just prioritizing again, realigning myself with actually, you know what, I'm not okay, and this is why I'm not okay. Now, what am I going to do to actually better, so that I'm not just better for me, but I'm better for the world around me. I'm a better auntie, I'm a better daughter, I'm a better friend, just by, prioritizing some stuff that and learning to say no a bit more again, and those things, and, so we're so grateful. Do you have any final thoughts for us?
I think mainly just if you need help, there is help out there. Please do not be shy to go and get help. There's no shame around it. There's, we're here to help. We don't judge.
Yeah.
If we did, we wouldn't be in the profession. So if you need help, just reach out to the men and the women in your lives as well. Check in on your friends. Make sure that everybody is coping okay, and have those "Are you okay?" conversations with one another.
Yeah, that's very cool. What about you, Tish? Got any final thoughts?
Yeah, I think just let this be something that starts a conversation with others, if not for yourself. Start the conversation with yourself. Self-care is an ongoing journey. It's a journey to your growth and your well-being.
It is. It's a big journey, isn't it? Yeah. And but before you go, Michelle, we always like to ask our guests, what are 3 things that make you instantly happy?
The ocean. Long stem roses that are in their final bloom.
Whoa, come on. Are you listening, fellas?
Pardon?
Are you listening, fellas?
Take notes, please.
Take notes, please.
And almond chai latte is bonus points if they come with long stemmed roses that are in their final bloom.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
Wow, that's so cool.
Those are good answers, right? Well, thank you again, Michelle. We've loved having you. Just talking about all things mental health and ways we can better ourselves. And so we're so incredibly grateful for your time. And again, for those who are listening to us, we will have information in our show notes so that you guys can, connect with us as well as connect with the those who are available to help in these certain situations.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me.
Hey, thank you so much for joining us today. We've had a blast. I know that it's been really enlightening for the both of us.
100%.
Just
It's been so good.
blowing our mind, but also bringing to the fore some much needed conversations, bringing back to that middle ground, and actually just having Michelle Kiehne on the show. She just really brought to life the importance of self-care. And wherever you are on that journey, or if you haven't begun, it's time to start doing that. It's time to start looking after yourself.
100%. And so, you know what, if you need help, it's actually okay to not be okay. And so we're going to leave some information in our show notes for some places that you can reach out to, as well as feel free to reach out to us, and we'll connect with you as well. But, never do this journey alone. It's so important that we do life together.
Yeah.
And but we're so grateful that you've joined us again on the journey of Hello from Us Co. Thank you for joining us. Don't forget to follow us and subscribe to our YouTube channel and our socials, Instagram. We also have a new thing. A few people have actually asked how they can support what we do. We have this thing called Buy Us a Coffee, or in your case, a tea.
Yes, that's a tea.
So in the description or in our bio, there's a link you can click on, and you can actually just buy us a coffee. And the money that we that comes in from that helps put this show out, as well as reach beyond what we're doing. So we're so incredibly grateful, and we look forward to seeing you again.
See you from me and Cindy-leigh.
Come on, we'll see you again very soon.